Okay, you have a problem with a device that you had a contract manufacturer make, or maybe it's just a component that you ordered from a contract manufacturer. The product isn't good. The component isn't good. Something's wrong. Maybe you did it as a supplier audit and you found a problem during the audit. So, what do? You submit to the supplier a request for a corrective action, a supplier corrective action request, or SCAR. So the company sends you back a response to your request. But then how are you supposed to follow up? That's what the question is. Your job isn't done when they just send you a letter saying, this is what we're going to do about it. You need to actually follow up and make sure it's actually done and what they did actually worked, actually prevents the problem from happening again. So they have to do their effectiveness check, but you have the obligation to also verify that. Just like when you have a certification body come in, let's say it's a notified body doing an ISO cert, they give you a nonconformity, you implement a CAPA, you do your own effectiveness check, then they double check when they come back and do another audit. Now, the notified bodies, they're going to come back next year. But should you wait until next year to check on your supplier to see if they've done anything? Probably not, particularly if it was something that was important, something that was dangerous. You might want them to implement it immediately. You might want to stop all production until they fixed it and provide proof of that. So you need to close the loop. That's what this video is all about. So, but I want to step back a second. When do you send the supplier a corrective action request? Do you send them a corrective action request if they make a mistake once, or do they have to make a mistake multiple times? If your policy is, well, we wait until they make a mistake 3 times and I have a trend, then you've tripled the number of non-conforming product that you receive because you're always waiting until they make a mistake 3 times. You're required to let them know when they made a mistake immediately. So you don't wait until they make it multiple times and then let them know they screwed up. You're supposed to let them know right away so they can take a corrective action on their own. But if you want to issue a formal supplier corrective action request, you don't have to wait until it happens multiple times. You could use the risk-based approach. You could say, well, this is a low risk item. I'm going to let them see if they can take care of it on their own. If we see it again, then we'll take action. Or if it's a serious issue, why wait? Do it automatically. Say, oh, this is a serious issue. Let's have an immediate supplier corrective action request. No need to do this twice. The severity is high enough. So you can use a risk-based approach based on severity, not on probability. That would be a better approach. And keep in mind, when you're feeling guilty, you shouldn't. The company that sent you the part is supposed to have a quality system that catches the problem before it leaves. It's supposed to have incoming inspection, in-process inspection, final inspection, and document all of this. But yet it still got to you and it's not good. So that means somewhere along the line, something broke down. One of their quality systems isn't good, and it's probably affecting more than just that one little thing that they sent you. Maybe it's affecting all their customers and they need to know about it right away. You might actually be doing them a favor in saving them thousands or millions of dollars in recalls. So let them know right away and don't be bashful about asking for a supplier corrective action. Now that we've got over that one little thing that really drives me crazy when people say, we're going to wait till it happens 3 times. Don't do that. Implement the request for the supplier corrective actions right away. But how you go about asking for supplier corrective actions, I have some issues with the way some of the people that do this, they say you have to do it on our form. Why? Why is your form better than the one that we have as part of our quality system? You approved us as a supplier. We have a corrective action process. We have a form that we use. Why do we have to use yours? Is it different? Does it meet different requirements? It shouldn't. It should be the same requirements. So they should be able to use their own form to fill that out. That's what the FDA does. The FDA doesn't have a form that you have to fill in their form. Some of the notified bodies do, but the FDA does not. The regulators don't say you shall use our form. They don't even have a form. They let you use your own corrective action form to implement corrective actions. So accommodate your supplier's own corrective action form. Let them use their system. Let them use what they're familiar with and they've been trained on and know how to fill it in, and they're going to respond quicker and more effectively solve the problem. So that's my little spiel on which form do you use. How long should you give them to respond? Once again, this should be a risk-based approach. If a notified body finds a minor nonconformity, they give you typically 30 days. If they find a major nonconformity, they typically give you 15 days. The FDA, they typically give you 15 days for 483s. But this isn't a regulator. This is a supplier that you're working with and talking with, presumably all the time. So if it is a low risk item, you might give them more time, like 30 days. If it is a high risk item, tomorrow might not be soon enough. The automotive industry judges things by the hour. They have a penalty in the contracts by the hour for shutting down their facility. So if it's a shutdown situation where you have to stop your production line, you shouldn't give them 15 days. So don't always have arbitrary things like what's magical about 15 days. Just because the FDA says 15 days or a notified body says 15 days, have a risk-based approach. Like, we need it by this date. Why? Because that's when we have to start up that production line again, and we want it fixed before we start. That's a good reason. And if the startup is tomorrow or we had to shut down because of this, we want you here now and we want this fixed. So that's the plan to fix the problem. Now, it's possible that the fix is not a quick fix. It's possible that you're going to say, in the short term, we're going to contain the problem by doing 100% inspection. That could be an acceptable approach if inspection is sufficient. It might be automated inspection, so we can catch it automatically with a validated automated test, like a vision system. Maybe we will put witness marks on the part to show that it's been through this additional inspection step. That's been done by companies. Maybe we'll have a special cert. Maybe we'll take a picture of it. Those are all containment measures that you could put in place. That might be all you can do in the short term. In the long term, you might change the process, improve it. In the very long term, you might implement a design solution that eliminates the issue altogether. But design changes could require regulatory approval. They could require all kinds of verification testing. If I have to redo biocompatibility testing, that's not going to get done in a week. It's not going to get it done in 2 weeks. It's not going to get done in 30 days. So even if it's a letter to file situation and I could do the testing quickly, the test might still be multiple weeks of testing. So don't just assume that you can do everything in 30 days. Sometimes it takes longer. It should be appropriate for what the change is. If it's a change to procedures, a change to work instructions, it might take less time because all I have to do is revise something and train people. If it's a change to materials, change to the supplier, change to equipment that requires validation, or a change to the design that requires regulatory approval, those are all going to take much, much longer and could even take more than a year. So risk-based approach, but containment might be necessary until you can implement corrective actions and long-term design changes. The next question I had was, what if the supplier refuses? Now, if you ever had a supplier say, no, we're not going to do that, most of the time they're passive aggressive about it. They'll nod their head. They'll say, sure, we'll look into that. We'll investigate that. We'll get back to you. When are you going to get back to me? You know, it'd be nice to know if I'm going to hear back from you in a week, a month, a year. Next time I run out of parts, when will I hear about this? So companies will often be passive aggressive about it and say they're going to look into it instead of being very specific. We're going to do this, 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 and this. So push back when they say, we'll look into it. Can you be more specific about what you're going to do? How are you going to investigate? Who's going to investigate? What will be the outcomes of that? When will I hear about it? Can we set up a meeting? What can I expect? Will I get compensated for this? Will you give me an RMA? Will you send me replacement product in the meantime? These are all really good questions. Will you send a team of people here to sort product at my facility because I got a problem with stuff on the production floor? These are all really good questions. But sometimes the suppliers will say, I'm just not going to do that, period. They just say, no, we're not going to implement the design change you want. we agreed to do this at this price and these specs. We're not going to agree to that new method that you're asking us to do. We don't think that's necessary. I see that. I've even seen it when the FDA said you need to do endotoxin testing on every lot, and the company says, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it every other lot, or we're going to do it once a year, or we're going to do it whenever we make a design change. The FDA said, you shall do this. You're not complying. So some companies said, well, we don't have another supplier. You have to be compliant with the regulations. If a company is not doing what they're supposed to do, you can't continue to use that supplier. That just makes you just as bad as they are. And you're running the risk of being shut down and having recalls, and that gets really expensive. So when a supplier refuses to do something, you can't just accept that. You have to push back and find a way of getting them to do it or finding a new supplier. It's unfortunate. You could take the approach of, okay, they're not going to cooperate with us. We'll implement our own containment measures, our own inspection steps. We'll implement some way of preventing harm, preventing safety issues in the interim until we find a new supplier. Those could be solutions. Maybe they're not going to check endotoxin. I guess we're going to have to sample the product ourselves and send it out for endotoxin. Did you ever think of that? If they refuse, you could always do the testing yourself. You can't do bioburden testing after this product is sterilized, but you can do endotoxin after it's sterilized. That's an option. And you could always, if they're not willing to do sterility tests for you or bioburden tests for you, you could say, well, ship us some product that's non-sterile. We want to check for bioburden. That would make it very clear. This is what I want. We'll even pay you for it. Those are containment. You may not like that as a solution, but at least you're compliant. So when you're thinking about this, what is acceptable, that you have to comply first. You cannot continue to just be making product that's under risk. You have to solve the problem yourself if your supplier won't fix it for you. Now, what are the best practices? Number one, let them know right away when there's a problem. Number two, do not wait until they make the mistake multiple times to give them a corrective action request. Let them use their own form, have a risk-based approach to how quickly you want a response, have a risk-based approach to how quickly they have to implement the solution, and verify that they actually implement it. And we didn't spend very much time on this yet. Have them send you documents proving that they did it. Consider going back for a supplier audit. But most of the time, we can do remote supplier audits for that specific issue and see if they've really fixed it. Sample additional records, sample additional product, show me what you've done, show me a picture of the facility now, and then in 3 months, when you fix the problem, we're going to take a look again. And we want to see a video. We're going to do a remote session. We want to see what you implemented. So they understand the expectation is not just that you fix this, not just that you do this supplier corrective action request, but we're going to trust but verify by we're going to have you live on a Zoom meeting and we're going to have you show with your cell phone. We want to see the new piece of equipment, the new inspection step. We want to see the statistical sampling of that final inspection to show that you fixed the problem and it's gone away forever. So quantitative effectiveness checks, great practice. I'll put a link down below for quantitative effectiveness checks. It's a blog I wrote a while back. But that's the best way. It's the most objective way. But sometimes processes, you can't come up with objective quantitative things for everything. And sometimes a picture will have to do. And a video is better than something in writing. It's even better than a picture. It's 1,000 pictures or more. So I hope that helps you with what you're looking for best practices if you have a supplier corrective action that's needed, how to handle it, how to handle suppliers that aren't cooperating, and what you need to do to follow up. And if you don't have evidence that you followed up on it in your records, it's just a matter of time before the FDA or a notified body is going to ask, did you verify they implemented those corrective actions? I hope that helps. Thank you for joining the live session today. I don't have any questions in the chat. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to put them in the comments down below and share this with other people if you found it helpful. See you next week. Bye-bye.